and the topic is conservation of energy, and this is what we'll be discussing today and tomorrow. So the first thing we want to look at is the work done by non-conservative forces. So we should understand we have been talking about net work done and conservative forces. And even in the cases where you have non-conservative forces, the net work done has to include the work done by the conservative forces and the non-conservative forces. Okay. And even in this case, your work energy theorem, which is the net work done is the change in kinetic energy, this will still hold. Okay. For conservative forces, we can define a potential energy, right? And we developed the relationship before that the work done by the conservative force is equal to the negative of the change in potential energy. Okay. So here you can write that the net work done is your change in potential energy plus the work done by the non-conservative forces. Okay. So just plug that into the equation, and instead of net work done, you can plug in change of kinetic energy. So what you will get is the work done by non-conservative forces is equal to the change in kinetic energy plus the change in potential energy. Okay. This delta function represents change. Okay. And it is different from just saying potential energy. Okay. So when we are saying change in kinetic energy, it is the difference between any 2 points, okay, which we are considering. So we have a mathematical description now that the work done by non-conservative forces can be found by looking at the change in kinetic energy and the change in potential energy between the two regions A and B which you are considering. Okay. In any process, we know that the total energy is neither created nor destroyed. So we also add the statement that the energy can be transformed from one form to the other. Okay. And it can also get transformed from one object to the other, okay, like a collision or something. But the total amount of the system remains constant. Okay. And that is the law of conservation of the total energy. Okay. So in our case, if we consider only the conservative forces acting on the system, then we can assume that the work done by non-conservative forces is 0. And in such case, you will get the relationship that the change in kinetic energy plus the change in potential energy is 0. Okay. And this is very similar to your statement of law of conservation of energy. And this is we call is the principle of conservation of mechanical energy. Okay. So again, this is not the same as the law of conservation of total energy. Okay. But this is a special case in which we are considering that there are no non-conservative forces, and in that case we can make a simplification that the work done by non-conservative forces will be 0. Okay. We can define something called mechanical energy, and that mechanical energy E is defined as the sum of kinetic energy of the system plus the potential energy of the system. Okay. So this is E, and it is defined as the mechanical energy of the system. Okay. And again, when we are considering only the conservative forces, this change in energy or change in mechanical energy will be 0, because we know that change in kinetic plus change in potential energy is 0. Okay. And if the change in energy is 0, that means the energy is constant, right? So whatever was the energy in the case A, the same energy is in the case B, and there are no differences in the change in energy between the two cases. Okay. So in mechanical energy is conserved. Okay. Every time we use the quantity and say it is conserved, it means that it is not changing. Okay. You have to be very careful and not confuse it by saying that it is 0. Okay. There is a value for mechanical energy at a certain situation A, but what we are saying is when we move to certain situation B, the mechanical energy remains the same. Okay. So between the two cases, the mechanical energy doesn't change in value, and that is what we call as conservation of mechanical energy. Okay. the principle of conservation of mechanical energy, what we say is, if only conservative forces are doing work on a system, then the total mechanical energy of the system neither increases nor decreases in any process, okay, and it stays constant or it is conserved, okay. And again, this is the special case. In the next lecture, we'll be talking about non-conservative forces. We'll be taking into account friction, and we'll see how the definition gets modified, and we will do some numericals with the friction as well. So, like we were mentioning, this relationship that mechanical energy is conserved is an important relationship, and we can use it to do a lot of numericals and a lot of calculations of problems and simplify them. Okay, just by keeping the relationship that suppose there is a situation one, then the kinetic energy and potential energy for situation 1 will be equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy for the situation 2, as long as only the same conservative forces are acting in both these situations. Okay. So let's take an example of the gravitational potential energy. Okay. So any object that has some gravitational potential energy, we have already defined it. It is some mg times some y value, and that y can be with respective to some zero potential wherever you take it in your system. And in such case, what we can do is, for the kinetic energy term, we can substitute 1/2 mv square, and for each situation we will have some different velocity. We can have some velocity v1, or we can have some velocity v2 in a second situation. And similarly, for the situation 1, you will have some potential energy which will be given by mg and y1 position of the object, and at situation 2 you will have some mg y2 which corresponds to the position of the object in the second situation. Okay, so let's try to apply to a very simplistic problem where you have a piece of rock and you are just letting it drop from certain height. Okay, and we want to apply this conservation of mechanical energy, and we want to find the velocity of this rock when it hits the floor. Okay, so at all these three situations that you're seeing here, the mechanical energy for the system is conserved. Why? Because we are neglecting air resistance and we are only considering gravity, because gravity is a conservative force, and so all the work done is by conservative forces. Okay, so for these three situations we can just simply write the equation that kinetic energy 1 plus potential energy 1 will be equal to kinetic energy at point 2 plus potential energy at point 2, and similarly it will be same as this kinetic energy at 3 and potential energy at 3. Okay, now since somebody is holding this rock, there is no initial velocity here. Okay, and so for the first term you can have kinetic energy 1 is equal to 0. All right, 1/2 mv square term goes to 0. So you are just left with mg times h, which is the height relative to this position of this object. Okay, so the first entire term becomes mgh. Right, and now if you're looking at the situation 2, here you have because you have chosen this value to be your potential at 0, so then the potential energy term here will be 0, and you are left with just 1/2 mv square term. Okay, and so just by conservation of mechanical energy, you can relate these two terms and say that your case of mgh will be equal to 1/2 mv square, where v is the velocity when the rock hits the floor. All right, and from here you can find v is equal to square root of 2gh. Let's do another example. And
So,
yeah,
so can we put the value of v square is equal to 2gh into the kinetic energy?
into the kinetic energy,
So,
of course you can, yes, because this, but this v square is the this v is the velocity only at this position. Okay, so that is the you will only get the kinetic energy at the position 2. Okay, this v is not the velocity, for example, here, right? So this velocity which you will get here, this value you can plug in here and get the kinetic energy at point 2. Does that make sense?
yes, sir.
Yeah, so certainly you can do that. Okay, So yeah, it's useful, to actually give some this suffix here. We should write it as V2 here, just to avoid confusion. You know, so that will be much better, right? Because V can be any V, right? So yeah, this makes it a much better case, like right here. Okay, good question. A roller coaster, and it is going down this hill. Okay, and we have defined that the height of the hill is 40 meters. All right, so that is this value of y, okay, from our reference point. And we have a car on which some people are sitting, and it starts from rest, so there is no initial velocity here. And what we have to do is we have to calculate the speed of the car when it comes to the bottom of the hill. Okay, and in the second case we have to find the height at which the cart will have half of the speed that it gets when it is at the bottom. Okay, so again, the you already know that the way we are going to calculate this is by using the conservation of mechanical energy. And the equation is just simply you can take the kinetic energy at this position plus potential energy at this position, and that should be equal to the kinetic energy at position 2 plus potential energy at position 2, and that should be equal to the value at certain position in the middle, where the kinetic energy at 3 plus potential energy at 3, that sum is equal to this sum. Okay, and remember, you cannot confuse the terms and never say that kinetic energy is equal to potential energy, because if you do that, then you can get an error. Okay, so always use both the terms, and maybe one term will go to 0, maybe it won't. Okay, so you get 1 half m v1 square, that is the kinetic energy at v1, and plus the potential energy at v1 will be mg y1 is equal to kinetic energy at position 2 plus potential energy at position 2. Okay, so all have the m terms in common, so that can cancel. And from here you will realize that v1 is actually 0, because it is starting from rest, right? And y1 we have to take 40. Let's take y1 as 40, then this value of y2 will become 0. So v2 will essentially become square root of 2 times g times y1. Okay, so that should come out 28 meters per second. That the speed of the car at the bottom of the hill will be 28 meters per second. So now we have to find the height at which we will have half the speed. That means we need to find the height where the speed will be 14 meters per second. Again, we can use conservation of mechanical energy. Okay, and we can use the situation that the at the bottom we have only kinetic energy term, because we have taken the potential energy term to be 0 at the bottom. So you will get an equation 1 half mv2 square plus 0. Okay, remember we have to use both the terms, and incidentally the potential energy term is 0 here, will be equal to your 1 half mv3 square. V3 is your 14 meters per second plus mg y3. So we have to find basically your y3 value. Okay, and you know both the terms, v2, v3, m will again cancel, and g. So try it out, see what value you get. I believe the answer should come 30 meters. We apply the same idea to a spring. We have to include the potential energy term of the spring. So, for instance, if you calculate the mechanical energy at a certain situation 1, now for that first situation you will have to plug in the value for the potential energy term for the spring. And again, if the mechanical energy is conserved, then in situation 2 the mechanical energy should be the same as mechanical energy in the situation 1, and we can write the expression as shown here. And you will have the potential energy at the situation 2 term again as 1 half kx2 square, which is your potential energy stored in the spring. Okay, so here the x1 and x2 terms are the lengths of the compression of the spring, and v1 and v2 are the initial and the final velocities that the mass that is attached to the spring is experiencing. Okay, so we can take an example of the toy dart gun, and here we can apply the mechanical energy conservation to find the amount of velocity with which a dart is expelled. Okay, so this toy dart gun has a spring loading mechanism, and initially when we compress the spring and the spring gets locked, that time we have initial velocity is 0, and all the amount of energy is stored in the spring. Okay, and once we pull the trigger, the spring is released, and that stored potential energy gets transferred to the dart, and it flies off with certain velocity. Okay, so in this problem we have been given the mass of the dart, which is 0.1 kg, and we have been given the spring constant k, which is 250 newtons per meter, and the distance that the spring is compressed is 6 centimeters as shown here. Okay, so we can apply the formula that is shown here for the situation 1 where it is compressed, and the second situation when the dart is just released. And if we just plug in the values, we will see that the first term, because the initial velocity is 0, becomes 0, and in the second term your potential energy term will become 0, as the compression x2 value is 0. Okay, and from here you can find the velocity of the dart that is shooting off from the gun. Okay, similarly, we can do an example where you have a spring that is compressed and there is a mass attached to it. And once we let the spring go, we can see the mass is flying off vertically and reaches a certain height h, where this is the maximum height that can be attained. So the end velocity here is 0. Okay. Now, a situation like this where the mass is given as 2.6 kg and the height is something that we can measure, we can perform this experiment in the lab, and we can also measure the compression that the spring is doing uh, before it is released. And by just knowing these three values, and we can find this value for the spring constant. Okay, so again we can solve this problem in two steps. In the first step, we can take the condition where the mass is at the highest point, and here the velocity v1 will be 0, and we already know what is the h value, so we can take the reference point y2 here to be 0. And if you plug in the values in this equation, you can find that the velocity at v2 situation when the mass is just released will come out to be 3.28 meters per second. And note that in this first step, because there is no potential energy of the spring that is coming into play here. Okay, the only force term that is coming into play is due to gravity, and that is the potential energy term that we have here for gravity. Okay, so now we can extend this same idea, and we can solve for step 2, where now we will have the potential energy of the spring term because the spring is compressed. And again, if we plug in all the values, and we will see that we can find the value for your spring constant. Okay, and so this is an alternative way actually to find the spring constant, and we can perform this in the lab as well. So there is another example that you can see, which is the bungee jumping. And in this example, a person is jumping off this ramp, and there is a bungee cord that is attached to him. So again, when this cord is getting stretched, there will be some potential energy that will be getting stored in this cord. And now you can again apply the mechanical energy conservation principle to solve for things such as the length to which the cord will be stretched from the initial height that it is getting dropped from. Okay, so you can apply the same formula and quickly find what is the value for delta y in the case where the cord is getting stretched. Okay, so again, in all these examples we are considering the law of conservation of mechanical energy, but we want to remember that it is not the same as law of conservation of energy. Okay, law of conservation of energy says that the total energy is neither created nor destroyed, and in fact it can be transformed from one form to the other, such as heat or some electrical energy or nuclear energy. Okay, and that statement is a much more general statement than the law of conservation of mechanical energy. Okay, so uh, moving on, if we consider friction to be a part of the problem at hand, then we have to remember that it is a non-conservative force, right? So if you are trying to find the work done by the friction, then we need two things. We need the force of the friction, and we need the distance through which the object or the particle is moving. Okay, and if we have those two things, we can plug it into our equation here, and that non-conservative force will be equal to the change in kinetic energy plus change in potential energy that is present in the system. So we can write it out in this form, that if we are looking at two distinct situations, then the first term will be the ke2 minus ke1 for the two situations 1 and 2. Similarly, your change in potential energy will be pe2 minus pe1. Okay, and you can rewrite this equation in a form like shown here, that kinetic energy 1 plus potential energy 1 plus work done by the friction will be equal to kinetic energy 2 plus potential energy 2. Okay, so remember, we'll always take the work done of the friction on the initial side, so that we can have the right sign of the work done by friction when we try to solve the problems. Okay, so again, when we consider the gravitational potential energy, we can use the mgy terms. When we have the spring potential energy, we can use 1 half kx square terms, and again we can use the same equations to solve the problems. Okay. So let's do an example. We have a roller coaster, and we have the mass, and we know what height it is getting pushed from. And initially, we are going to say that the initial velocity at 1 is going to be 0. And as this roller coaster is getting dropped and coming to the second position, there will be some friction that will be acting, and it is allowing this roller coaster to only reach a height of 25 meters. Okay, so during this entire process, now we want to find what is the work done by the friction during this motion. Okay, so we can plug in the values that we have. The mass is 1000 kilograms, and we know that the initial velocity and the final velocity is 0. So if we plug in those values, 1 half mv1 square term will become 0, and on the right hand side we'll have 1 half mv2 square term, that will also go to 0. So your work done by friction will just be your mg term multiplied by y2 minus y1. And if you plug in the values, so for g as 9.8 and y2 minus y1 is 15 meters, you will get that the work done by frictional force is minus 147 kilojoules. Okay, and from here you can find the force of the friction, which is minus 367.5 newtons. Okay, when you encounter problems in physics, okay, what is going to happen is you have to decide what is your system. Okay, so this is now a little bit overlapping with something called thermodynamics. So sometimes you will have one particle, maybe you will have two particles. If you consider three-dimensional solid, you have 6.023 into 10 raised to 23 atoms. So any case, any scenario, you might have even galaxies or something. So you have to define something that is part of your system. Okay, so you have to define a boundary, and it has to be a well defined boundary. Okay, there can be no gaps in this boundary, and this is going to be your system, and whatever is outside this boundary is going to be your surrounding. Okay, now what is happening within the system is what we are going to consider as internal of the system. Okay, and what is going to happen from outside is called external part of the system, right? So when we consider the total work done, okay, this total work done is the work done by external factors plus work done by internal factors. Simply speaking, you can have a situation where there are some external forces acting on the system. Okay, and you can have some internal forces that are part of the system. For example, I can consider two particles here, and then they can exert gravitational force on each other. These particles can be charged, they can provide electric force between them, and external forces could be something else from some other source. Okay, so when we define a system and we define a well founded boundary, then we have to consider what are the external forces, what are the internal forces that are coming in the system. You know, if suppose two particles are colliding, then the collision between them is what is happening internal in the system. Okay, so a more generic way of writing this would be if you separate the components out. Let's say there are some external forces, so you can combine the external forces and the work done by the non-conservative forces which are part of this internal system on one side, and then you can take the work done, the total work done, minus the work done by conservative forces. Okay, it's just rearranging this equation. Okay, and we already know that work done total is change in kinetic energy, work done by conservative forces is negative of the potential energy, and the right hand side again becomes mechanical energy of the system. Okay, so whatever is the system, it has certain mechanical energy, and we are saying our relationship is work done by external forces plus work done by non-conservative forces will be equal to your change in the mechanical energy of the system. Okay, so in many cases we will just consider that there are no external forces in the system, and the system is whatever is defined in the problem, that is only thing you need to worry about. And in that case this external term goes, and we are just left with work done by non-conservative forces. Okay, but in a much more general sense, you should remember that this is a more generic expression, and that will change your definition of what is the principle of conservation of mechanical energy. Okay, so the mechanical energy of a system will be conserved if the total work done by all the external forces and by all the internal non-conservative forces is zero. Okay, so here see, we have now provided a much more generic expression to how to deal with problems where you might have some external forces into the system as well. Okay, so you know, time and time and again in physics we try to simplify it a lot, but you know, there are many things at play. You should always remember that you know, things like that can happen. Okay, so that is a much more complete definition of your principle of conservation of mechanical energy. And of course, you know, if there is friction here, then you know, it goes here on the left hand side. There can be other factors, air resistance, or some other non-conservative things that can be part of the system, so they have to be included in the equation as well. Okay,